KLDR Radio Online, St. Louis, Missouri. Your personal and professional development resource.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
KLDR Online.
They play everything I want to hear.
Hi, this is Vivian Cobb, and I'm sitting here with my co-host, Robert Kittredge. And we are hosts of a radio show called Topics on the Table. What's that, you ask? I'm glad you did. It's exactly what it sounds like. We are going to throw topics on the table.
We're going to take those topics, throw them on the table, dissect them, exploring topics that have impacted us personally, society, and the world as a whole. And here's our goal, is to discuss, not position.
You mean we're going to have a conversation?
A real conversation.
I think that's a little bit of a lost art. Maybe that should be one of our topics. What do you think?
How to bring back conversation and contemplation versus positioning.
I love that. Please join us on Wednesdays, Mountain Time at noon, for Topics on the Table.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier, 2020 happened. You know, the number one skill of a leader right now is learning how to navigate change. Everything and everyone is changing, including you and I. So join me, Simon Phillips, on The Change Show. With my guests, we'll be looking at what's working and what isn't working right now when it comes to making change happen and how to feel more resilient. We'll also have some fun along the way as well. So that's The Change Show with Simon Phillips, only on KLDR.
Here is another leadership quote from your professional development station, KLDR Online.
Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. But when you become a leader, success is all about growing others. That comes from Jack Welch. What does that quote mean to you? Go ahead and reflect on it a little bit. Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. Go ahead and follow us on Facebook and go ahead and put your thoughts in there as to what this quote means to you.
Welcome to Leadership 101, helping you develop the skills needed to enhance your leadership toolbox. Here he is, the always entertaining Chris Cebollero.
Well, this is it, and here we go, Leadership Development Radio. We are kicking off our Leadership Development Talk Radio series, and we've got a lot of hosts that are going to be coming. We haven't had the opportunity to talk a lot about what this radio station is all about for the last 5 weeks. We have been playing some great hits from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and now we're going to start to bring you a little bit of leadership content, little by little. You started to hear some leadership tips. You started to hear some leadership quotes. And now, starting the week of September 6th, we are now going to kick off our Leadership Development Talk Radio series. We have some great hosts that are coming to you from around the world. That's right. Our hosts are international as well as part of the United States. And we have some great shows that are going to be coming up. We have some great leaders that are going to be talking to you. But what we wanted to do was bring you a little bit of what Leadership Development Talk Radio is going to be all about. And this is my show. Leadership 101 is all about you. It's all about developing your skills. It's all about bringing you what you need to fill your leadership toolbox. Leadership is both an art and a science, and we have to be able to understand the science before we can paint the portrait of organizational success. So during Leadership 101, my job is to talk about the skills that you need to develop. Today, we're going to talk about accountability. You know, before we begin, I want to thank you for joining KLDR's Leadership Development Programming as we set off to begin a great resource for you. Please assist us by sharing this with your network, with your peers, and your coworkers to help us get the word out as we now develop this great leadership resource. Hopefully, you've been enjoying the music we've been playing for the past 5 weeks. And now we get into leadership content. Once a week, all the hosts will be putting up their shows, more to come on that. And then we'll be playing them throughout the week. If you missed it, you'll be able to catch it up Right now, we're in the process of finishing up our website, so you'll be able to follow us there. But go ahead and run over to Facebook, KLDR Online, and follow us there. You'll be able to get all the information about the hosts, all the information about the shows, and a little bit more about the radio station. Today, we are going to talk about accountability on Leadership 101 and developing accountability. One of the things that I really wanted to be able to do with this topic was bring you something in the beginning that was truly tangible. You know, when we talk about it, this skill ensures accountability. This is all about holding yourself and others accountable to expectations. Look, when we're setting off to develop a great organization, a department, or a project, we must have a great vision, right? This is what it's going to look like. This is what the organization is going to look like. This is what the project's going to look like. The next thing that we do is we develop a strategy to develop the goals that we need to reach this vision. Then we know that culture is the behavior of the organization, of the coworkers to respond to reaching that vision. So a very simple question: what is the way that we ensure to keep a positive, productive, and engaged culture in this long road of reaching the vision? It's all about setting expectations. We have to be able to ensure that we meet the expectations that are going to reach the goals, that are going to reach the vision. And from that, we've got to ensure that accountability is in place to those expectations. And everybody is accountable to those expectations. You know, think about this. This is an often overlooked practice, not only from us, the individual side, but also when we're supposed to be holding others accountable as well. And that's our job. Look, we have these expectations: getting to work on time, productivity metrics, outcomes, customer service expectations. If we're going to set up expectations based on visions and goals, we must be accountable as individual and as team members to reaching those goals. When we fail to hold people accountable, ladies and gentlemen, we allow a lazy culture to develop. We also create resentment from those high performers that truly want to create a name for themselves, that truly want to be able to exceed expectations. And in an organization where accountability is non-existent, I'm going to bet that you have a retention problem, or you may even have a toxic work environment. So, ladies and gentlemen, accountability is all about the vital need to ensure responsibility is owned, and owned by everybody. You know, one of the things that I often talk about in organizations is we've got to be able to set a great vision. I mean, think about it. We are wired to think in pictures. If I ask you to think about a car, you don't see the letters CAR. You actually picture a car. So then what you need to do is ensure that everybody knows their responsibility in reaching that vision. They have to own that. It is owning your commitments and staying true to your word. And of course, when we fail to do this, it affects our leadership reputation. It chips away at our own integrity. It drives a stake in the hearts of those who want to believe in you and who want to follow you. You know, there's a great Japanese proverb that I've been using for a long time that says, the reputation of 1,000 years may be determined by the conduct of 1 hour. And oh my gosh, is that true? We work so hard to develop our leadership credibility, to develop our leadership reputation, to ensure we have high integrity. And it's that one thing that just happens that starts chipping away at our reputation that we're trying to build. All right, let's go ahead and slow things down a little bit. You know, leadership is tough, and one of the hardest things that we must do, and believe me, there are many hard things that we've got to do in leadership, but one of the hardest things that we have to do is be answerable for our own actions, but more importantly, answerable for that of your team. And again, a missing component. A lot of times we're willing to point fingers and we're not really able to fix the problem. This is the secret skill that will boost your leadership credibility. When you are accountable, people know you mean what you say and you say what you mean. Here I am. I'm trying to set up the importance of accountability, but hopefully what we're going through right now is really just a test, because you should all know this. When you are placed in a position of responsibility, it means that you are on the hook. It means that you're the one out front. It means that people are watching everything you do, every action, every word. Therefore, accountability must be right up there with your ethical leadership, and you've got to be able to ensure that you're meeting this all the time. I want you to think about this. If your organization has a culture of accountability at every level, I mean, think about it. This is the dream. We're sitting in front of this canvas right now, right? And if your organization has a culture of accountability at every level, people would not be pointing fingers. Problems would have solutions, and all mistakes and failures would become lessons learned for the whole organization. I mean, this can happen somewhere over the rainbow, right? Where credit is given and shared, and mistakes and failures and blames are accepted. You know, life is all about mistakes, and in my book, Ultimate Leadership, 10 Rules for Success, these are the rules that I had to develop to be a great leader. Rule number 7, experience comes from mistakes, and mistakes come from lack of experience. We make mistakes and learn from them. You know, in my trade, I was a paramedic, still a paramedic for, over 30 years, right? And I have a lot of skills. I have a lot of ability. I have a lot of knowledge that when a mother hands you a child that's in cardiac arrest, you can do your best to save that child. But anytime I learn something new, I always have a problem. Recently, I've started to, I want to build these wood flags, right? And I see them all on the internet, and people make them look easy. And I'm trying to learn how to carve the stars in the Union. And I've got a chisel, and I've got the stars all laid out, and I'm following the videos, and I'm reading the skills that I need to have. And I have not developed one great star yet. At least I've not developed 2 consistent stars yet. And I got to tell you, when it comes to your ego, you're like, what the heck am I doing wrong? But we got to remember that what's the one thing that you ever did the first time that you did successfully? And we've got to be able to take this process, and we've got to be able to learn it. And we've got to be able to hold ourselves accountable to mistakes and failures and lessons learned, and then grow from them and teach from them and guide from them. This is where our wisdom comes from. So as the first skill, we're going to talk about developing accountability. And if you're just tuning in, you're listening to KLDR Leadership Development Radio. Since this is our first show, I want to go ahead and lay out how Leadership 101 is going to work. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out the need for the skill. That's kind of what I just did right now. I kind of built up as to why accountability was so important, and we did this over the past 8 minutes or so. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to outline what the people without this particular skill looks like. How do they do business without this skill? And you may be able to see some of yourself in there. You may be able to see some of your peers in there. But I want to set up what people without the skill look like and how they work. Then we'll outline what a leader with a capable skill set will look like with accountability. This is where you'll want to be. This is where you want to get to. Then I'm going to give you the skills and discuss how we get to skill mastery. And then finally, I want to be able to touch on what it looks like when we abuse these skills. Sometimes an overproduced skill can become a weakness and become a detriment to our leadership reputation. If you're taking notes, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to write that down because that's a very important component. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we are going to start laying out the tips that you need to know to develop accountability, to teach accountability, and ensure you're bringing accountability to those around you. KLDR, Leadership Development Radio.
Follow us on Facebook at KLDR Online. Like our page and join the discussion.
Join us for Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave on KLDR Radio. A weekly visit to the crossroads of leadership, communication, and engagement, where we provide captivating conversation while helping you create your compelling company culture. Get meaningful insights on these topics from fascinating interviews with top business leaders, trendsetters in leadership research, and perceptive commentary from your host and leadership expert, Dr. Dave Miles. That's Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave on KLDR Online Radio. See you there.
Leadership Development Talk Radio.
It's making me better. Just making me a better person, and I want more.
KLDR Online.
KLDR Online, Chris Cebollero with you again, Leadership 101. Thanks for coming back. Last segment we started to talk about why it was important to have accountability. And now I'm going to start to lay out those skills that those people with low accountability, with capable accountability, and then what we need to do to master the skill of accountability. But before we go into that, I do want to talk about, what's going on in the radio station. We've got some great hosts that are coming up, and you've heard their promos. And I am excited to share this microphone with a lot of the great hosts that are coming. We've got shows called The Maverick Paradox. What is Maverick Leadership? Well, Judith Germain is going to start to talk to you about that and take you down the path of what Maverick leadership is all about. We've got the Leadership Pathfinder with Makara Trusty. Makara is a longtime friend in setting the standards for others to follow in the leadership world. She is going to take you down that leadership pathway so you can find the way that helps you get to your success. And there are just so many shows to talk about, and I am so excited. We are constantly developing the content that's going to help you get from point A to point B, and we're excited that you're here. Okay, accountability. You ready? We've set it up enough. Let's go ahead and get into the nuts and bolts of what we need to know about this foundational skill, because really the skills that we have are really going to be based on accountability. If we're not going to be accountable for our own actions, makes no difference how well we communicate, makes no difference how much conflict resolution skills we have, makes no difference how we can inspire and motivate. Because as soon as we show that we're not going to be accountable to ourselves, we're not going to be accountable to our team, we're not going to be accountable to our coworkers, our leadership reputation starts to chip away, and we start to lose our leadership credibility. So where we always start off in Leadership 101 is we want to talk about the people that you know that don't have good accountability. When we think about these folks that have no accountability in our organizations or on our teams, we may even be able to picture their faces when I start to go over these characteristics. I want you to utilize this resource as best you can. If you're listening at work, go ahead and keep a pad of paper next to you so you can take notes. If you're at home, pad of paper so you could take notes, because one of the things that we do here at Leadership 101 is we give you the experience, we give you the abilities, we give you the knowledge, but really for this to take hold, you've got to do something with this information. You've heard all the time that knowledge is power. I'm going to say no. Knowledge is not power if you're not going to use it. So knowledge only becomes power when you use it. So go ahead and take a couple notes there. But let's go ahead and talk about these folks. I want to go over some of these characteristics with you. So when we think about folks that don't have good accountability, these are the people in our organizations. These are the people in our lives. These are the people that are around us that play the victim. It's always something or someone that is the cause of the issue. And when we think about this, this could have a lot to do with self-esteem and self-confidence. It's better to be defensive than it is better to kind of own up to those challenges. So another trait is that there's no accepting of responsibility for anything that they do. Do you know anyone that is always right? They never admit they're wrong. This is a very, very serious character flaw and really goes against the core and really goes to the core of poor self-esteem and low self-confidence, right? I mean, when we think about this, even though we're talking about accountability, the reason that people don't want to own up to their mistakes, own up to the mistakes of others, is because they're worried about getting in trouble. They're worried about their job. They're worried about their standing in the organization. First off, we've got to be able to develop an organization that allows for accountability against the expectation, but that we set up a safe environment there as well. We all make mistakes. The boss is making mistakes probably right now when you look over into their office. Go ahead and look. He doesn't know what we're talking about. And now one of the things that we need to think about is it's okay, and accept those. So when people don't accept responsibility for their actions, it's a character flaw, and they need to be able to be comfortable that we're not a one mistake organization. If we make a mistake, let's analyze why it happened. What was the root cause? How can we keep it from happening again? Another trait of people who don't have accountability, they never follow up on anything and gather little information about anything they are working on, whether it's projects or whatever that is. We put people in charge and they just don't follow up on anything. When can I have that? Well, I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you on Wednesday, Chris. Well, you know what? Wednesday's here, and what do I got? I got words from last Wednesday. I didn't get anything. And they're not talking about anything. They're not telling us what's going on. And then we've got to follow up with them and say, all right, yeah, I'll get that to you tomorrow, Chris, right? So we've got to be able to think about, we know those people, right? Another characteristic is when working, they provide little or no feedback. Hey, how you doing with that McMullen report? Yeah, he's going to be happy with it. Well, can you give me a little bit? I'd rather kind of keep it here. I'd rather you see it when it's completed. They keep the cards close to their vest. I mean, these are folks that know how to play the game. They're very, very observant. So they may even know when a project is going off course, and because they're worried about their own inadequacies of maybe they haven't started the project yet, or maybe they don't think the project is up to snuff from their side of their responsibility, they may start to point the fingers at other people to throw the blame off their own inadequacies. They're trying to be subversive to the success of the project, so then there's a little bit more time that's added to that, or now we've got to fix what that issue was, or now that I'm going to let these problems build up until somebody else finds them, because they don't want you to find that their own work is not up to snuff. And I think that this is a big challenge, and one of the things that we've got to think about. I mean, have you ever known folks that have kind of always been the negative Nellies on the things that we're working on? Oh, this is never going to work. Well, it may not work, but you know what? Let's give it a try and let's see what happens. And then when it doesn't happen, it doesn't work out to be the way it's supposed to work out. Accountability tells us, you know what? I made a mistake. I thought that this was going to be the end all be all. I thought we came up with a new process here. Have you ever been there? Have you ever had to stand in front of your workforce and tell them, I made a mistake? I've done it several times in my career because I've made mistakes. Did I do it on purpose? Did I do it because I meant to make a mistake and make myself look like a fool, or to slow the process down in the organization? No, I thought what I was doing was going to work, and it didn't work. But this is what happens when we try new things. Sometimes it works and we're excited about it. Sometimes we fall on our face. We got to get up and we got to go back to the drawing board. This is the essence of accountability, ladies and gentlemen. Another trait for those who don't have high accountability is they do not want to take the lead on assignments or projects and would rather be part of a team of many that have accountability. I may be responsible for this part. And other people are responsible for their parts. And then we get together and we put all parts together. And what they're hoping is that, they can just be successful with their little part, or maybe that the project will derail because somebody else isn't doing a good job. But they're not standing up to say, yeah, I'll do that. I'll take the lead on that. I'll make sure we do that. How many times have you said to people who are around you, I really need to get this done? Well, don't worry about it. Consider it done. I'll take care of it for you. They have the opposite of that, right? They don't want to be able to take that accountability. Now, this may not be because of malice, but, they may not have learned the steps in growing this skill, right? So when you think about this, we bring people into the organization. We do interviews, we do whatever it is we do background checks, and then we hire them. And then we bring them into the organization. They have a set of skills, and they have a set of knowledge. What are we doing to bring that to the next level? The bottom line is, I don't hire you to come into my organization for what you've done in the past, but what I think you're going to be able to do for me in the future. And if I'm not willing to grow your knowledge, if I'm not willing to grow your skill, if I'm not willing to grow your ability, what am I getting? I'm getting what somebody else has already got. We need to be able to take people and move them from point A to point B. So you may have even identified some of these attributes as we've been chatting in yourself, but that's okay, because this is where growth comes from. Now we're going to be able to discuss how to develop these accountability steps, right? But before we do that, some of the reasons that individuals may perform on the lower end of the spectrum of this skill may include that they're not learning how to work with inside this skill. I mean, when we talk about it, you're here, Leadership 101. We're breaking the skills down that you need to be successful in your leadership career. When's anyone ever done that for you? When has your boss come up to you and said, I realize that maybe you have a little communication issue. Let's go ahead and meet with me every week and let's start to polish your communication skills. I mean, this is what the challenge is in organizations. As a leader, my job is to get work done through other people. And then we got to get the very best out of those people. And I'm going to say this is going to be a continual, line that you're going to hear from me on Leadership 101. Because you've got to be able to understand that this is important. Number two, it could be a result of not being goal-oriented. And that, my friends, is a whole other show, and one that is extremely important to your personal and professional development. And look for that topic in an upcoming show. Another challenge why people aren't accountable, it really is based on fear of rejection and fear of failure. I mean, this is really programmed in us as we start to, get older. And, we're going to talk a lot about the subconscious mind on Leadership 101, because as we start to develop these skills, we need to be able to figure out how to do that. Could be based on low self-confidence, low self-esteem, not wanting to get out of the comfort zone. I mean, there are some people that are not accountable on purpose. There are other people that just don't know how to be accountable. And remember, you're in a comfort zone right now. This is where I want to be. And stepping outside that comfort zone is something that's a little bit challenging, right? I mean, what's the one thing that you would do today? One thing you would do today if you knew you wouldn't fail? Well, I got to tell you, man, you might as well do it, because you're going to fail at it. Everything that we do, we fail at. We've got to be able to ensure that we develop our experience based on our mistakes. And I talked about it earlier in my book, Ultimate Leadership, 10 Rules for Success. Rule number 7, experience comes from mistakes, and mistakes come from lack of experience. And if you're taking notes, write that down. And you've got to be able to be comfortable with that. So you can have low self-esteem. You could worry about failing. You could worry about your ideas being rejected. It's just the normal process of life. The other things that people do is that they procrastinate and they lack commitment. Procrastinators really make me crazy. I got to tell you what, as a leader, sometimes you got to see the greatness in people before they can see it in themselves. But when they want to procrastinate about that, it becomes a little frustrating for me. But that's my issue. That's not anybody else's issue. So the other thing that we want to be able to think about is they really don't know how to measure performance. How do you know you're successful? How do you know that you're a good worker? What tells you that? What's your metrics for that? People have an expectation of where they want to be in their career. Back in the old days, before electricity, I used to rate my day on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being the best day that I can have, and 0 being, oh my God, I want to go back to sleep and live a Groundhog Day again, right? But this is really where we need to be. And that was very simple for me. Oh, this was a 7-day because of this. And what didn't make it a 10-day? And then I was able to analyze that, and it gave me that opportunity. But if people don't know how to measure their performance, what does excellent really look like? They're not able to see the big picture. They're not vision people. I'm one of those visual learners. I got to see it. And if I can see it, I can picture it. And if I can picture it, I can work towards the picture. But in the absence of that, or for people that don't have that learning style, and what do you do for them? Another component is they don't have good critical thinking and problem-solving skills. One of the biggest things that people will say is they don't want to get up in front of a group of people and speak. And one of the biggest reasons that they say is that they don't want to look stupid, and they don't want to be asked questions they don't know the answers to. Well, you know what? We don't know the answers to everything. If you know everything there is to know about your career field, raise your hand. But we may not have been able to develop the critical thinking and the problem-solving skills that we need to develop. So when we start to think about this from the standpoint of growing our accountability, we got to get over these barriers. We got to get over these speed bumps. We got to get over the things that are holding us back from being successful. Oh my gosh, that was a lot to do. KLDR, Leadership Development Radio. This is Leadership 101. We're going to take a quick break. And on the other side of that break, we're going to come back and I am going to share with you the characteristics of the people that have good accountability and what those model of people look like. KLDR, Leadership Development Radio.
You are listening to KLDR Online Classic Hits.
This is John Mellencamp.
Hi, this is Jonathan Kay from Journey.
This is Steven Tyler from Aerosmith.
And the best leadership development talk radio.
Here is another leadership quote from your professional development station, KLDR Online.
Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. But when you become a leader, success is all about growing others. That comes from Jack Welch. What does that quote mean to you? Go ahead and reflect on it a little bit. Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. Go ahead and follow us on Facebook, and go ahead and put your thoughts in there as to what this quote means to you.
KLDR Radio.
It's informative. It's helped me grow as a person.
Your leadership voice is heard here.
It's my station.
Hey, this is Makara Trusty. Join me on my show, The Leadership Pathfinder, where we will talk about today's challenges in leadership, personal and professional development, and how to transform the employee culture. Only on KLDR, the Leadership Development Radio Network.
KLDR Radio, Leadership Development Online. This is Leadership 101. I am your host, Chris Cebollero. And again, this is the inaugural show of Leadership Development Radio. You know, Leadership Development Radio really was a brainchild to bring you some great leadership knowledge from around the world. And again, we've talked about it, that our hosts are coming from the United Kingdom. And we're going to have a lot of great discussions on leadership. But the brainchild was, you know, we sit around at work and we're listening to our MP3 players, and some people are listening to podcasts, other people are listening to audiobooks, and I think they're all great. So why can't we have a station that's dedicated to the classic hits of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and then have some great leadership development talk radio topics? And this is my brainchild, Leadership 101, and I'm excited to bring it to you. Well, for the first 30 minutes of the show, we kind of laid out why accountability was important. And then in the second segment, we talked about the people that don't have great accountability. Why don't they have great accountability? What are the challenges that keep them from having great accountability? And then what traits do they have about them not wanting to take accountability? And some of the things that we talked about there is they don't see the big picture and they're unsure of the ultimate vision. And we talked about poor critical thinking and poor problem-solving skills. Again, these are all other shows that you're going to see on Leadership 101, but they don't know how to manage the expectations as well. Okay, so we covered all those things. And now let's talk about what a leader that has good accountability looks like. These are the talented people that are able to be accountable, to be role models, to be mentors, and they're able to help us to do well because of what they do. You know, sometimes we look at these people. I want to say this right from the beginning. Sometimes we look at these people and we kind of snarl at them, right? They kind of have their foothold into the organization. Everybody likes them. You know, the boss seems to come to them when it comes time to picking them for projects. And we kind of resent those folks a little bit. But you got to remember, they got there because of a reason. We can call them brown nosers. We can call them teachers' pets. We can call whatever we want to call them. But they've put themselves in that position. All you've got to do is to move yourself into a different place from where you are today, and then you're going to be getting the people coming to you and asking you. You're going to be getting the boss coming to you and asking you. So this is all about accountability. It starts with accountability. So let's go ahead and look at some of these characteristics of the leaders that have good accountability. First, they follow up on their commitments, and you can bank on their word. You know, there's a saying out there that you underpromise and you overdeliver. You know, one of the things that I would tell my bosses all the time is consider it done. And they knew that it would get done. Do you have people that are around you? When they give you their word, you just know that they're going to be able to follow through. I mean, think about that. There are people that we go to that we ask for help, and we know that they're going to deliver for us. That is an incredible quality. And when we think about accountability, that's why we go to those people. That's why we associate with those people. That's why those people are kind of in the next level of where we are or where we want to be. Maybe you have this characteristic as well. I pride myself on keeping my word. I don't want to break my word if I can help it. Now, I got to tell you, there's some times I have said I will get that done for you, and I was not even close to getting it done when I promised it. How do you handle that? I would just go back to that person and said, look, I promised you that I would have this today. I need a little bit more time. But I'm not doing that the day before. I'm going to know a few days before it's due that I'm off track. And this is where time blocking comes in. And this is a great way to do time management. Again, another Leadership 101 topic down the road, right? But you got to be able that when you give your word, when you say I'll do it, when you say don't worry about it, when you say I'll take care of it, there's never another consideration that won't get done. All right, we're talking about accountability, and these are the people that are skilled in the art of accountability, that they're able to be accountable. One of the things that accountable people love to do is they love to take ownership. You know, that's my project. I'm working on that. This is my organization. So there is a little bit of ownership when it comes to projects, when it comes to development, when it comes to processes, when it comes to this being my organization. Remember, we have a vision in the organization that we want to achieve excellence. But what is my responsibility in reaching excellence? Leadership is an action. Leadership isn't a position. Leadership isn't achievements. Leadership isn't a title. Leadership is all about action, and everybody in the organization has the ability to influence people. John Maxwell will tell us in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. If we can influence people, we can lead people. And then the people who are accountable, who take ownership, are showing influence. We always know, I talked about, don't we know the people that will always be true to their word? Well, don't we know the people that will always step up? And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes they step up a little bit too soon. And we talk about this being as an overproduced strength, right? We talk about accountability as being an overproduced strength. You can't, when you're accountable, you can't jump into every single project. You got to wait to see if somebody else is going to want to do this. And then you got to give them the opportunity. People may want to take the lead here. Because employee A is always jumping in first, I never get the opportunity. So if you're an accountable person and if you like to take the lead on things, pause a little bit. Give somebody else the opportunity to take the lead. But these are folks that love to have a clear sense of ownership. Another thing that they like to do is they take personal responsibility for decisions, actions, and failures. They do it. I mean, I got to tell you, sometimes we do the things that we do and it just doesn't work out the way that we thought it was going to work out. We set off with the best intentions. We've done a SWOT analysis. We've done a pest analysis. But you know what? There's things we just didn't think about. There are things we just came up against that we didn't consider, the team didn't consider. And you know what? That's okay. This is where we use our critical thinking skills. This is where we use our problem solving skills. And we allow the things to happen that need to happen. So we want to be able to make sure that we're following up on our commitments. We want to make sure that we take good ownership. We want to make sure that when it comes to our actions, decisions, failures, and mistakes, we own them. We tell the people that we made a mistake. One of my great stories here is as a chief of EMS. I talked about in my career, I was a paramedic. In my role as the chief of EMS in an organization, I wanted to change the training process. I wanted to come up with a training process that was going to be better than the one we had. I thought the one that we had was taking too long. There's no reason why it should have taken somebody 10 weeks to come into the organization, get into training, and get out of training. So I got together with some leaders. I got together with some members of the workforce. I got the FTOs around the table. Those were our field training officers. And I said, all right, let's develop a new training process. And it took us about 3 months to develop this process. And we thought about everything. And then came the day. We finally put this training process into play. And as it rolled along, we found that it was going to take almost twice as long as the other training process. It was based on competency. The paramedics and EMTs had to get X amount of skills and X amount of time to get out of training. But those skills weren't coming as fast as we thought it was. It was very, very quick that we had to abandon the 3 months of work. I had to go in front of the workforce and say, I'm sorry, we didn't predict this, and I failed at this, and I apologize. We're putting the old process back into place right now until we can polish and go back to the drawing board. Was I embarrassed? I was a little embarrassed. But you know what? It's what needed to be done because it was the truth. And I think my workforce respected me because of that. Because what they saw is they're not the only ones that make mistakes in the organization. And I owned my mistake. And I stood up there and said, I'm sorry. And I said, we're going to make it better and we're going to do it together. KLDR Leadership Development Radio, we are talking about skilled people that have good accountability. And these are the attributes of those skilled people that have accountability. And I want to put these next two together because even though they're their own line items, I think that they go together really well. First is that accountable people have processes for monitoring their work and assessing their results of the work as they're proceeding. We talked about this. What does excellent look like? How do you know you're doing a good job? When you're developing something, when you're implementing something, when you're going back to the drawing board and polishing something, we have processes that we go through that are able to say, are we doing it in the right amount of time? This may be a time thing. This may be a process thing. This may be a resource thing. But we need to be able to figure out a way to monitor the work that we're doing and to assess if that work that we're doing is producing. Sometimes we got to go to our peers and say, hey, I'm working on this new process. What do you think? Here's a little tip for you. And if you're taking notes, write this down. If you are changing a process for the workforce, you never change that process without the workforce being at the table to talk to you about it. They're the ones that are doing the work. They're the ones that may have the idea of how to make it better, of how to make it more efficient, of how to make it more cost effective. So never change a process without having the workforce at the table, especially if they're doing that work. But an accountable leader always has a process to figure out and assess the work that they're doing. I think that this is really important. And then what goes with that, I said that there are two things that go together here. You have to be able to develop a communication and feedback loop into the work and process. So again, you may need to ask somebody, look, I'm stuck here. What do you think? Hey, we just put this together. What I'm thinking is if we do this in step A and we go ahead and skip step B, but we go ahead and take step D and bring it up here and then move B and C here, I think it makes it a little bit effective. What do you think about that? Ask people that, because now as you start to develop something, you could say, you know what, I didn't do it myself. I didn't do it in a vacuum, but you have to be able to develop a communication and feedback loop so people are able to look at your work and processes and give you their opinions. Or that when this process goes into play, they're able to come back to you and say, you know what, Chris, that process you put in place, I really like it, but there's a couple flaws in it. And let me explain to you what that is. I mean, how comfortable do you feel walking up to a coworker and telling them the project that you just developed over 3 months has some flaws? Who's going to want to hear that? But you know what? As an accountable person, I want to hear that. I need to hear that. I didn't develop this process for me. This isn't about my ego. Although, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes there are people who are doing it. It's because of their ego. And we got to be able to separate our ego from our responsibility. But anyway, again, a whole other show on Leadership 101, right? Dealing with our ego and our conscious and subconscious mind. But don't get me started on that. But we have to be able to feel comfortable with communication and feedback about our work and about our work processes. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's what a skilled person looks like that has good accountability. But I talked about earlier in the beginning of the show that I wanted to touch on what skill mastery looks like. So now that you're able to be accountable, you're skilled at being accountable, what does it take for you to get to the next level in your accountability? And I want to give you 5 characteristics of people who master accountability. Number 1, and if you're taking notes, write these down. Number 1, you have to be able to assume responsibility for the outcome of others. Now as a worker, you're accountable, right? Now as a project lead, you're responsible for the project. Now as a team lead, you're responsible for the team. But if you're a leader and you're responsible for people, you've got to be able to accept responsibility for the outcome of others. We give all the credit, we take all the blame. Number 2, we've got to be able to promote a sense of urgency and establish and enforce individual accountability in the team. I was saying it slow, right? It's really all about holding your team accountable. If I'm responsible for the outcomes, I said that, right, a couple seconds ago. I'm responsible for the outcomes. I got to tell you, I got to set the expectation, and then I got to hold you accountable to the expectations, right? I mean, that's only fair. That's what we need to do to be an effective team. But that's where the vision is. We want world dominance. We want to be the best team. We want to be the best organization. How do you do that? You set expectations to meet the vision that you want to be able to attain. Well, to meet that vision, I need the culture of the organization to be accountable. Number 3, we need to be able to work with people and establish specific performance standards. This is something we don't do. We don't talk about what excellent looks like. If I'm going to give you a project and say, I need you to do this, then what do you need me to do to finish this? What do you need me to do to make this look the best? Hey, what does excellent look like? Number 4, you need to be able to ensure that you're completely on top of what's going on and you know where things stand at all times. One of the things that I used to do in my organizations is I used to have a stand-up meeting every morning, a 15-minute snapshot of the day. You know, EMS is a 24/7 business, 365. Christmas time, Thanksgiving time, holiday time, what is that? We don't have that in EMS. Every single day at 7 o'clock in the morning, we had a 15-minute snapshot of what the day looked like, so all the leaders were accountable to know what was supposed to happen that day. And number 5, you need to be able to provide balanced feedback at the most critical time. Leaders give constructive and corrective feedback, but don't forget the celebratory feedback as well. Be constructive, be corrective, but don't forget to be celebratory. Oh my gosh, we have got a lot of information that we have put out so far, and it is not over yet. When we come back from the next break, I am going to give you the top 10 things to do to develop your accountability. Get ready for that. This is Leadership 101 on KLDR, Leadership Development Radio.
KLDR Radio.
It's informative. It's helped me grow as a person.
Your leadership voice is heard here.
It's my station.
Hi, this is Judith Germain. Join me on the Maverick Paradox. This is my show where we will discuss maverick leadership in all its guises with experts in their own fields. Have you ever wondered where you can find maverick leadership and what it is? Well, join me on the Maverick Paradox on your leadership development station, KLDR.
Check out the Maverick Paradox with Judith Germain starting the week of September 6th, only on KLDR Online, Leadership Development Radio. KLDR, Leadership Development Radio, Chris Cebollero back with you with Leadership 101. Hopefully you've had a great time over the past 40-some minutes as we've talked about developing your accountability skills. Just really quick, I was listening to the promo as we were coming back in from the break, and Judith Germain was giving you her best on the Maverick Paradox. Judith is one of our hosts that are coming to us from the United Kingdom, along with Simon Phillips. He is the change man. He is the one who is going to help you to understand change and all the things that go along with that. Check out Judith, check out Simon on their shows starting the week of September 6th. Okay, I promised you that I was going to give you 10 tips on how to develop your accountability. Let's go ahead and start this speed round, and if you're taking notes, go ahead and write these down because these are going to be important. One of the things that we know, a lot of the things that we know about accountability is that people aren't goal-oriented. They're afraid of making mistakes. They have low self-confidence. They don't want to get outside the comfort zones. They lack commitment. They disregard the bigger picture. So these are the things that they have. We got to be able to get past those. So now, the number 10 thing that we need to do is we need to be able to establish clear goals. And it's whatever we do in life. It's not just work. This comes down to personal and professional. We've got to be able to establish good goals. How do you take charge of where you're headed and where you want to be? It's your own personal vision, or it's the organizational vision. Then you need to set goals that you want to be able to attain so you can make that vision happen. Number 9, you want to be able to identify the triggers that keep you from procrastinating. A lot of times, procrastination is an excuse to get yourself off the hook. If you don't feel comfortable in what you're trying to achieve, if you don't feel good about what's going on, you are going to procrastinate. You're going to make excuses. You're going to blame other people. That's a big thing when it comes to procrastination, ladies and gentlemen, is we just don't say I'm not going to do it. We just don't say I don't have the money. We just don't say it's raining out, I'm not going to the gym, but we point our fingers at other people as well. Number 8, we need to be able to redefine our success. Think about that for a second. Do things really need to go right the first time? I'm going to take you back to the story I told you in the beginning of this hour. We started to talk about me learning how to carve stars. So this is hand carving stars. A lot of people who build these wooden stars will put them on these big machines, or they'll use little Dremels. I'm trying to use a chisel to hand carve these stars to be three-dimensional. OMG, is it difficult. But you know what? I've probably done, 50 or 60 stars, and no two are looking alike. But I'm happy what they're looking like right now, right? So redefine what success looks like and put a plan in there to say, I'm going to give myself a little learning time. Number 7, you need to be able to find the connection. So anytime we do things, unless we're truly hating what we do, and sometimes people are in positions that they just don't like, we need to be able to ensure that we find the connection in the work that we're doing. But more importantly, find the connection in the people that we're responsible for. Find the connection in the people that we're responsible for their outcomes, and let them know that you're there for them. Number 6, we need to focus on what it takes to moving forward. Get the vision of what the project looks like. Get the vision of what the organizational looks like. And then develop a plan and focus on how do we move forward. There's people that will put plans together and they'll say, I'm going to do this first, I'm going to do this second, I'm going to do this third. Well, one of the things that I've learned in my career, when I start something new, my plan has one step: start. Because a lot of times we get to step 2, we get to step 3, and something happens, there's a hurdle, there's a speed bump, and it derails us. And then all of a sudden we think our processes blow. They don't blow. We didn't anticipate the speed bump. We didn't anticipate the hurdle. So my plan, start. Just go ahead and start. Number 5, monitor progress regularly. How do you know you're doing a good job? Stay on top of what you need to stay on top of. Put yourself in a time limit. I want to be able to get this done by this day at this time. I want to be able to ensure that this project is done by now. Whatever that is, develop a process to monitor how you're doing. And that could be time-based. That could be outcome-based. That could be metric-based. Whatever you want that to be. Number 4, find a way to gauge your impact in the organization. You're working there. You're part of the team. You are a valuable member of that organization. You're a valuable member of that team. You're a valuable member of that project. You need to be able to feel good about and find a way to engage your impact in that team. Why were you picked? Why were you volunteered? Sometimes it's called voluntold. Why were you voluntold? Determine how important you are to that project. Because remember, we have to be able to deal with low self-confidence. We have to be able to deal with low self-esteem. Number 3, take your ego out of the mix. Cast your pride aside. Your work has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the mission. It has to do with the vision of that organization. And it's not about you being right. It's not about you being correct. It's not about you being flawless. And once you take yourself out of that position, you're now making yourself more vulnerable to be a little bit more even-keeled. To say, you know what, I made a mistake. To say, you know what, I did make something happen there. To say, you know what, let's go ahead and go back to the drawing board. To stand in front of your workforce and say, I'm sorry I made that mistake. Number 2, own up to your mistakes. Stand in front of your workforce and say, I did it. We didn't know. It could have been better. Back to the drawing board. Was it going to happen again? Maybe, but then we'll come and apologize again. And then finally, number 1, find ways to do your work better every single time. Challenge yourself to get to the next level of your professionalism. Develop the next level skills. Develop the next level processes. Develop the next level knowledge. Develop the next level ability. This is all about our professional development. And I hope that those 10 tips help. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of our hour, the first show of Leadership 101, where we tackled accountability. I want to thank you for allowing me to join you on your professional development journey. This is Chris Cebollero, and look for the next show of Leadership 101 on September 6th, and I look forward to seeing you there. This is Chris Cebollero, KLDR, Leadership Development Radio.
Thank Thank you for joining us on Leadership 101. You can interact with us on Facebook at KLDR Online. Join us on Leadership 101, teaching the skills needed to develop into the best leader possible. A leader's job is to get work done through other people, and you need the skills to make that happen. Join Chris Cebollero as he breaks down the skills needed to develop the best workforce possible. Join Leadership 101, only on KLDR Online.
Your Leadership Talk radio station.
Hi, this is Elton John.
What's up? We're the Commodores.
This is Cyndi Lauper.
And you're listening to your favorite radio station.
KLDR Online.
Follow us on Facebook at KLDR Online. Like our page and join the discussion.
All right, let's get you back to the great hits, the classic hits from the 70s, 80s, and 90s on Leadership Development Radio, KLDR, St. Louis, Missouri.